What I'd like to do now is just share with you a simple game format, and the game is called Pop. But just before we start the game of Pop, it's a card game, and in card games I think children need to learn a certain etiquette. So one is that you always deal to the left, you deal in a clockwise manner, and no one should pick up their cards till they're all dealt, otherwise you can sort of muck up the dealing. The other thing I've noticed that when young children play cards, sometimes they can't quite hold them. So what we've done is just made a really simple card holder, and all you need for that is a piece of A4 piece of paper. You fold once, you fold twice, and then all you do is you put a staple at either end and your cards will slot in there. Now, you need more cards, you just turn it around sideways. So here's two examples that I've made. So there's one, and you can see that we would teach the children to put the cards in some sort of order, and it sits in there and they can just hold it. So sometimes little hands can't hold playing cards. If you had a larger hand to hold, then it just sits inside that way. So what we're going to do now is just teach you how to play Pop. So the game of Pop is really a matching game, and in this case here we're going to start very simply. We're just going to match the numbers 1 to 6. Now you'll notice here that I've already dealt the cards out, but I would have gone in the clockwise direction. I dealt, so this player goes first. Now for the sake of this game I'm going to turn the cards face up, but normally you wouldn't see the cards. And ideally what you need to do is teach the young children that they need to put the cards in some sort of order, because it helps them a little bit here. Now you can see that this player has got 1, 2 2s and 3 4s. This player has 2 1s and a set of other numbers, and then the third player also has some similar numbers, and then I'll just reveal what my hand looks like. Now, as I said, I dealt, so this player would go first. This player can choose to lead with any card that they like. But imagine, for the sake of this game, that they lead with the card with 1 on it. Okay, and you just place the cards just straight out in front of you. Now, the second player, the rules of the game are pretty simple. The second player, if they have a 1, must put the 1 out. In other words, if they have a match, they must match it. So this player would put the number 1 out from their hand, and when they put the 1 out, they say Pop, and that's where the name of the game comes from, Pop, and they would collect a counter from the centre set. Now, depending on how long you want this game to be, you might have 20 counters for a short game, 30 counters for a larger game. Now, when they actually played that, they put a counter onto the tens frame, so they're keeping track of the score. Another way to play the game would be the first player who gets 10 counters. Well, the next player then has a turn, and that player has also got a 1, so that player would play the 1, except now there's a match here and a match here, so they would go Pop, Pop, and they would get 2 counters. And so they would put the 2 counters onto their tens frame. Now, unfortunately for me, I don't have a 1 in my hand, so I can't pop. You must pop if you do. If I had a 1, I must pop, and it makes sense because then I'd get a triple pop. Well, let's imagine I don't know what the next player's got in their hand, and I decide that I'm going to put a 2 down. Well, this player here would pop, because they would put a 2 down and go Pop and collect a counter. The next player, however, doesn't have a 2, so they can't pop, so they would need to choose some other number. So for example, here they might throw out the 5. This player here is happy because they would put a 5 down and go Pop. And I'm really happy because I've got a 5 in my hand, and I'd put my 5 down and I'd go Pop, Pop. Now, potentially, in this game here, you could get a triple pop because someone else might have had a 5 there and go Pop, Pop, Pop. Later on, we'll talk about other versions of this. So Pop is simply a matching game. You could play until the counters run out, or you could play to one player has 10 counters on their tens frame. Once you finish that round, you shuffle, then we deal again and play again.